Sam, I've got a new idea for a show.
Yeah, hit me with it.
Right. So it's wrestling news, but it's just news that we dreamt of. Because last night, I had a dream where there was a New Japan invasion of WWE led by Shingo Takagi. And then Byron Saxton came out and went, I'm now the leader of New Japan. And then handed Shingo Takagi the big green belt from the Saudi shows. He handed him that.
I mean, that's world changing. That's huge. Why isn't anybody else reporting on this?
I agree. Dream news coming soon. Here's some real news before we get there. Let's take a look at the headlines. We have reports of a backstage issue with an AEW star, potential future plans for Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander, and a backstage update on Rhea Ripley versus Asuka at WrestleMania 37. Kicking things off, it's hot off the press, the Wrestling Observer newsletter, a report regarding a backstage issue with an AEW star. And we are talking about Ivelisse. The quote is, Ivelisse hasn't been used of late, which we all know. A fan asked her about it, and she said, if only she could speak. She was on a per-event deal and is not on a full-time contract. She had been teaming with DeMonte, of course, but she's been working singles as late. And the story is that there is an issue with her and a few coaches, and she's, as a result of that, not being booked right now. But she's also not being let go either at this point. Ivelisse is somebody who is not without controversy. Certainly, we've heard of various sort of backstage heat reports previously to do with Ivelisse. Including previous heats with Thunder Rosa, obviously, who was featured prominently on AEW TV.
Yeah, it's one of those things, it's like an unfortunate reality of the wrestling world is that, it's part of the real world and there are real people involved and people aren't always going to get along, people aren't always going to see eye to eye, but you've got to hope that eventually everybody can get on the same page for the good of everything, really.
Sam preaching. Perfect harmony in the wrestling world is what Sam Driver wants. We'll see, we'll keep you updated on that. Next up, WWE are removing content from the WWE Network for all markets. So we all know that WWE, alongside Peacock, they've been removing some of the more controversial segments from previous wrestling shows. Roddy Piper in the feud with Bad News Brown, obviously, where he was half blacked up. There's also been the Nation of Domination parody that DX did. That's being removed also. But the update here is that they're going to be removing it from WWE Network for the places that can still get WWE Network outside of North America. So they say that Peacock has a team that will be reviewing 17,000 hours of content to see what fits into their standards and practices. Content that they don't feel will work will not migrate over. We knew that already, 17,000 hours.
They should have given me that job. I've just watched 17,000 hours of rushes for distributing all of the final bits of that Mania list.
Give him a ring. But also, he notes in The Observer that it appears that the WWE Network itself, internationally, will be following Peacock's lead in whatever Peacock doesn't deem fit, WWE will remove from its own network for foreign markets. They expect the entire network to be transferred over by August, but a very, very time-consuming process. It'll be interesting to see what gets cut.
I mean, it's probably, it makes sense from the standpoint that the Peacock deal is probably going to be repeated the world over with various partners.
So cut it now to save the hassle later, right?
That's it. Peacock's going to have some very good standards and practice, and it's going to be industry leading, I'd imagine. American media is, of course, at the forefront of a lot of that sort of stuff on that side of the industry. So I think it'll be pretty universal. So it makes sense that whatever they do for Peacock, they do everywhere else, and then it's just a case of there you go, sell it.
I do not envy the people that have to do that job. Next up, backstage updates on Rhea Ripley versus Asuka at WrestleMania 37. Rhea has commented on this, saying that since her blow-off on NXT and being assigned to Raw, she's just shown up and sat in catering every week with nothing being told to her. And then she found out about this match being planned for WrestleMania 4 p.m. the day of. It's the most WWE thing I've ever heard. Which tells you how late the decision was made, and she was told. Absolutely bonkers stuff. I think a lot of us expected it, obviously, with Charlotte not on TV, and then those Rhea vignettes started appearing. It seemed the most sensible thing to put Rhea straight into that title picture. God knows she deserves it. But to be told at 4 p.m?
Just huge life-changing news.
Yeah, massive. The biggest match of her career and day of the show. As I say, very, very WWE. Speaking of which, future plans for Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander. Obviously, the Hurt Business is, well, I don't want to say no more, because MVP is still saying that Hurt Business is MVP and Bobby Lashley, and they're potentially looking for new people. He's clarified also, in case you missed it, that King Corbin is not a member of the Hurt Business, thank the Lord. But we've got some new news from The Observer this morning, Sam.
So Meltzer's written that the Hurt Business was broken up on Raw when Lashley and MVP kicked Benjamin and Alexander out of the group. Of course, we know that. We just had Retribution break up as well. While no doubt Lashley will remain pushed given all that they've invested in him, the Retribution group members have all disappeared other than Ali, who isn't getting a push. Benjamin and Alexander are also likely to be the latest victims of WWE's breaking people up just to do so, and without doing so for a feud, since Lashley is just blowing both off in one match, and they're most likely going to be dead.
Absolutely tragic, this. And he follows up. It used to be that when you broke a group up, it was because one of the guys was leaving, or if you thought you could draw better with the change with the formerly aligned faction members. But the breakup feud will likely be Lashley squashing both Benjamin and Alexander on Raw, and them fading into the abyss like the Retribution guys with that breakup. We already know that Shelty B and Cedi A are going to be in the Armbar, which is taking place on SmackDown, remember, next week. But it's just devastating because the Hurt Business breathed new life into
fantastic.
Both of those guys. It's been so good, and it appears... And I think we sort of already knew it, that they've been broken up without good reason.
Can we not just make them the Hurt Business Wolf Pack? Something along those lines?
I love it. No, I don't. It's awful.
Have them coming out with the Wolf Pack theme. It'll be fine. Nobody uses that anymore.
Nash isn't doing much, is it? Bring him back in. Yeah, why not? A few quick bits before we finish off as well. Regarding what WWE stars hear when they're in the Thunderdome. This is just an interesting note. Fightful Select reporting that... after talking to the wrestlers who have competed in the Thunderdome, the WWE actually pipe in the noise to the building and not just the broadcast. This means that the stars can hear what the audience hears and are not just wrestling in silence, which obviously has to be a really good thing for them because it feels more like performing in front of a live crowd. I remember various superstars saying in interviews that wrestling, when they weren't pumping in crowd noise or anything like that, or they didn't have the screens, was 10 times more difficult because those bumps hurt like 10 times more. Do you know what I mean? Because there's nothing, it's just, that's it. And you got no crowd pop, you got no adrenaline pumping.
It's got to be sort of similar, but on the other side of the coin, I guess, to, like last Mania, where we were just kind of watching, and around that time anyway, where it was just silence. Weird. And it was just odd. It's just odd. But it also kind of gives them that safety as well. If anything was to go wrong with them just pumping out the noise as part of the broadcast, if it's being piped into the building as well, then it's there, it's happening. So they're never going to have to worry about that.
Makes sense. A WWE star writing a new book that will shock many people. We are talking about Paige, who's been chatting to Renee Paquette, saying, I'm doing a book. I've been writing down notes and stuff. I feel good writing it down and getting it all on paper. It feels nice, and I'm in a wonderful space to do it, which is nice to hear. She's had a rough old time of it, hasn't she? So I'm glad she's thriving creatively. She's saying she's making a 2-book series because she has so many wonderful stories that will shock so many people. What I thought is normal just isn't normal to the average family. It's not that bad. I'm making it sound like it's terrible. It's just a lot of things. She's had an incredibly strange life. She's a very, very unique life. That's a better word for it. So it'd be interesting to hear more from her. Obviously, we know a bit from the Fighting With My Family film and all that, but this will be a proper expose into just a fascinating life.
And who doesn't love wrestling autobiographies, right?
Totally. You got a favourite?
I really like Foley's books.
Yeah, great.
Yep.
Brett's the right answer.
Brett's the beefy boy, though. It's like...
It's great, though. Oh, man, you can't put it down once you pick it up. It's so good. WrestleMania again. Logan Paul has confirmed that he will be a part of WrestleMania, speaking on his Impulsive podcast. I do give them a subscribe, of course. Great show. He just said, Tampa, WWE Miami, train with Jake, back to Tampa for WrestleMania, WWE. That's all he said, but he's going to be there. I think we all knew it anyway. Obviously, he's booked for SmackDown. And before we go, we got an injury update on Johnny Hungy. John Silver, who of course was injured, his shoulder injury in his match with Darby Allin, fortunately didn't require surgery, which could have put him out for 6 months or longer. No major damage. He is expected to be out from between 4 to 6 weeks. So you will not be missing Johnny Hungy for too long. And maybe he can still appear on screen, though not in ring.
Yeah, it's good to hear. You always worry so much whenever there are instances of injury that something, it's going to take somebody out, especially when they're just endearing themselves so much to the fan base as well.
He's so over. He's so fun to watch. He's very, very unique, isn't he, as well?
Yeah.
Like Paige's life. Anyway, that's your lot. That's all the wrestling news for today. Check out the channel this weekend. We've got so much going on, including war stories, as Sam mentioned. We've got a great Jack video which is coming out, which is who could possibly beat The Undertaker's winning streak, like surpass it. Who can...
Yeah.
You'll see it soon. That's on Sunday. You've got WTF and you've got Graded tomorrow. A tier list going up tomorrow evening as well. And on top of that, we've got every WrestleMania match ranked from worst to best. 383 matches. Please turn your ad block off.
And don't forget, we've got an all-time great as well.
We have got an all-time great, of course, coming up in just a few hours. So take care of yourselves. We're so close to WrestleMania now. Let's get the cat excited. See you in a bit.